My stepmom looked me dead in the eye at my high school graduation ceremony, chuckled, and said to our extended relatives, "At least she's smart." Beauty completely skipped her. The entire row of family members erupted into mocking laughter while I stood there in my cap and gown, tears burning behind my eyelids. They thought they had crushed my spirit for good. They thought I was a helpless outcast who would crawl back begging for validation. Instead, I walked out of that house with exactly $375 in my savings account, a single suitcase, and a burning, ice-cold resolve to never look back. I cut them off entirely, erasing myself from their lives as if I had never existed. 14 years passed in complete silence. 14 years of relentless hustle, sleepless nights, and building an empire from absolute scratch. Little did they know, their cruelty was the exact catalyst that forged my survival, and my return was going to dismantle their world down to the foundation. My name is Clara, and at 32 years old, I've learned that blood doesn't automatically mean family. Sometimes, it just means people who share your last name while trying to break your spirit. For as long as I could remember, my household operated under a brutal, suffocating hierarchy. My stepmother, Evelyn, ruled our home like an absolute tyrant, and her biological daughter, Vanessa, was the golden princess who could do no wrong. I was the invisible outsider, existing only to clean up their messes and stay out of the way. The illusion completely shattered on the hottest afternoon of June, right after my high school graduation ceremony. I had spent 4 grueling years working night shifts at a local diner just to keep my grades at the very top of my class, earning a scholarship I desperately needed. Standing outside the auditorium in my rented cap and gown, I walked over to my parents, hoping for a single ounce of pride or a warm hug. Instead, Evelyn looked me up and down with a sneer, turned to our extended relatives, and chuckled. "At least she's smart," she announced loudly for everyone to hear. Beauty completely skipped her. The entire row of family members erupted into mocking laughter. My father didn't say a single word to defend me. He just smiled and looked away, completely complicit in the humiliation. Tears burned hot behind my eyelids, but something inside me didn't break. It hardened into ice. That public cruelty was the final, unforgivable straw. I didn't scream, and I didn't beg. I walked back to our house, packed every single possession I owned into one battered suitcase, and emptied my bank account. When I counted the cash, it came out to exactly $375. With that meager sum, a single bag, and a burning, unyielding resolve, I walked out that front door and cut them off entirely, erasing myself from their lives as if I had never existed. Leaving that house with just $375 and a single suitcase felt like stepping off a cliff into total darkness. At 18 years old, while my former classmates were busy decorating their college dorm rooms and enjoying campus life, I was fighting tooth and nail just to survive. I rented a tiny, rundown studio apartment with paper-thin walls on the roughest side of the city, a place where the streetlights flickered and police sirens sang me to sleep every single night. To pay rent and buy basic groceries, I worked 16-hour days without a single day off. I folded laundry at a local dry cleaner from 6 in the morning until the afternoon, then rushed across town to work the graveyard shift as a 24-hour diner waitress. My body ached constantly, my feet were permanently blistered, and exhaustion became my constant shadow. There were nights when I sat on my bare mattress eating cheap instant noodles, crying tears of sheer frustration and loneliness. But beneath that pain, a cold, unyielding fire was burning. I refused to let my stepmother's parting insult define my existence. I promised myself I would build a life so secure and successful that they would never be able to touch me again. Every spare minute I wasn't working, I spent at the public library, utilizing their free computers to teach myself advanced software coding, system architecture, and digital design. Having grown up watching the corporate world operate, I noticed a massive gap in digital infrastructure and automated branding solutions. I poured all my frustration, my isolation, and my ambition into lines of code. For 4 years, I coded late into the night, fueled by black coffee and sheer determination, until I successfully built a proprietary AI-driven digital branding and software architecture prototype. When I turned 22, I took a massive, terrifying leap of faith. Using my mother's maiden name to ensure my toxic family couldn't track my professional footprint, I pitched my software prototype to a group of angel investors in the city. They didn't see an exhausted former diner waitress with worn-out clothes. They saw a visionary tech architect with a revolutionary product. Within 3 years, my stealth startup scaled from a chaotic garage project into a multi-million-dollar digital enterprise. I poured my earnings back into the business, upgraded my life, and surrounded myself with brilliant, supportive people who valued my mind. 14 years passed in complete, peaceful silence from my biological family. They thought they had erased me, completely unaware that the girl they threw away with pocket change was quietly building an empire capable of buying out their entire social circle. 14 years of absolute silence came to a jarring halt on a rainy Tuesday morning when a gold-embossed envelope arrived at my corporate executive suite. The delivery wasn't just any piece of mail. It was an exclusive, formal wedding invitation. I carefully sliced open the heavy paper, running my fingers over the raised lettering. My younger sister, Vanessa, the golden princess who could never do any wrong, was getting married. The groom was Dr. Julian Vance, the heir to the city's largest private healthcare and biotech conglomerate. Ironically, it was the exact same high-society medical syndicate my family had spent my entire youth worshipping and begging for prestige. The invitation hadn't been sent by my parents or Vanessa. It was a mass-printed corporate invite dispatched by the groom's family to major tech CEOs, investors, and regional stakeholders who held financial partnerships with the conglomerate. They had no idea who I actually was, thanks to the professional name change I adopted years ago. I held that heavy card in my hand, staring at the embossed names, and felt a strange, cold wave of calm wash over me. Part of me considered tossing it straight into the shredder and continuing my peaceful, successful life. But another, deeper part of me knew I owed it to the 18-year-old girl who walked out of that graduation with $375. I owed it to her to stand tall, look them in the eye, and close this chapter for good. Besides, there was a poetic twist they couldn't possibly anticipate. My digital tech firm had just finalized a massive, multi-million-dollar institutional partnership and acquisition stake with Vance Health Systems, making my enterprise a primary corporate stakeholder backing their network. They had spent over a decade trying to erase my existence, completely oblivious to the fact that the invisible outcast they cast aside was now a powerful corporate entity sitting at the very head of their financial future. I placed the gold-embossed card back on my desk, picked up my pen, and RSVP'd with a quiet, certain smile. On the evening of the wedding, I stepped out of a chauffeured town car outside the grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive luxury hotel. Wearing a custom midnight blue silk gown, my hair styled with effortless elegance, and carrying myself with the quiet authority of a chief executive, I walked through the towering glass doors. The pre-ceremony lounge was packed with the city's medical elite, wealthy board members, and prominent surgeons sipping champagne. I was quietly observing the floral installations when a sharp, horrified gasp cut through the ambient chatter. I turned to see my stepmother, Evelyn, standing near the registration desk. She wore an expensive emerald dress, but her face twisted into an expression of pure, unadulterated disgust. She marched directly over to me, not even bothering to lower her voice as she drew the attention of nearby guests. "What is this cheap defect doing here?" she sneered, her eyes scanning my tailored gown with bitter suspicion. "Did you sneak past security to beg for scraps? Or did you think you could leech off your sister's big day?" Before I could answer, Vanessa stepped out from the bridal suite, flanked by her bridesmaids. Her jaw dropped in shock, but it instantly morphed into a malicious, mocking laugh. "Look who decided to crawl out of the gutter," Vanessa said loudly enough for half the room to hear. "You weren't invited, Clara. Did you dress up in a knockoff gown just to pretend you belong in our world? You're not part of this family, and you never will be." My father pushed through the gathering crowd, his face flushed with embarrassment as high-profile doctors began whispering among themselves. He grabbed my arm roughly, his grip tightening as he growled in my ear. "Still seeking attention. Still an embarrassment to the family name. Security is going to throw you out into the street where you belong." I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I simply looked at my father, then my mother, and finally at my smirking sister, maintaining a calm, unbothered composure that infuriated them. Just as two burly security guards began making their way across the marble floor toward me, the heavy double doors at the back of the lounge swung open. Dr. Julian Vance, the groom, walked in accompanied by his father, Arthur Vance, the billionaire chairman of Vance Health Systems. My father immediately raised his hand, signaling the guards while flashing a hypocritical smile at Arthur. "Apologies for this disruption, Arthur," my father announced loudly. "An uninvited parasite somehow breached your event security. We're having her thrown out right now." Julian paused, his eyes landing directly on me. The champagne glass in his hand slipped from his fingers, shattering across the tile floor as his face drained completely of color. Julian rushed forward, pushing past my parents so fast he nearly knocked them off balance. He stopped inches away from me, breathing heavily. My father stammered, bewildered, asking why the groom was approaching an uninvited beggar. But Julian turned around, his eyes burning with fury as he glared at my parents and Vanessa. "How dare you speak to her like that? Are you completely out of your minds?" he shouted. He turned back to face me, taking a respectful step back before addressing the stunned room in a loud, commanding voice. "This woman isn't a beggar. She is Clara Vance, founder and CEO of Vance Digital Enterprises. As of this morning, her firm finalized the acquisition of a controlling stake in Vance Health Systems. She is our primary corporate partner, our board stakeholder, and literally everyone's boss in this room." A suffocating, pin-drop silence fell over the ballroom. My stepmother's face drained to a ghostly white, while Vanessa staggered back as if she'd been physically struck. I calmly reached into my designer clutch, pulled out my executive business card, and placed it onto the tray of champagne glasses beside my sister. "You didn't test me, Evelyn," I said softly, my voice carrying clearly across the quiet room. "You discarded me, and now your entire world belongs to me." I turned around and walked out into the night, leaving them trapped in the ruins of their own arrogance. What would you have done if your family treated you like a defect? Let me know in the comments below.